Well, then it's time for a site visit, Mills.
Yeah. I mean, this would be really cool. I may call some friends in the greater Miami area and ask them if they've heard of this deal, just because I bet that this is one that has made the rounds.
Homestead Acquisitions Anonymous.
Hello, another episode of Acquisitions Anonymous.
We don't have 100% beard anymore.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Acquisitions Anonymous. I'm Mills Snell, one of your co-hosts. Me and Heather Endresen are on the pod today, and we do something I don't think ever done before, which is we pull up Biz by Sell and we pick a deal from a list. And it is a very interesting list. It's very exotic, you could say. We look for businesses for sale in Florida, and it has a very interesting selection bias and a very interesting sample set because there are some wild things that we see. Really, really interesting. We didn't chase every kind of rabbit along the way, but we picked this interesting business. It was actually turned out to be a real estate development that somebody wanted you to buy before it had been completed. So it was more kind of real estate than it was operating business, but we talked about the merits of the underlying business philosophy. It's an exotic car storage development that is right next to the Homestead-Miami Speedway, which is a mouthful, but really fascinating. We talk about the dynamics of what does this business actually do? There's rental or there's condos. It's a real estate development that you're picking up in the middle of the deal. And so that has its own challenges. I pull up the map. I've never been to this speedway. It looks fantastic, but kind of are wondering, how is it that we're the lucky ones, right? That's always the question. How are you the lucky one who's on the receiving end of this deal when obviously some really smart people have probably passed it up there in Florida? So I hope you enjoy the episode. It's very entertaining. At least it was entertaining for me, but I hope you enjoy the episode. Stick around for a quick word from our sponsors.
This episode of Acquisitions Anonymous is sponsored by Acquisition Lab. Acquisition Lab and their team, they've been longtime supporters of the pod, and they provide a really great service for people who are looking to acquire a business. So it's created by Walker Dybel, who's become a friend, the author of Buy Then Build, How to Outsmart the Startup Game. So Acquisition Lab's an accelerator with a highly vetted, cohort-based educational and support community for people who are serious about buying a business. So a lot of our listeners like you tune in every week to our deal reviews. You want to get in on buying a business. You're on this podcast because you're trying to learn how to buy a business. But if you're not quite sure where to start, Acquisition Lab is a great place to start. So they exist to help people buy a business and to navigate all those complexities of the process, everything you hear us talking about on the show. They provide a proven framework, tools, and resources that support you all the way from search to close. They do it. There's a whole bunch of educational material and support. So if you're serious about buying a business, check out acquisitionlab.com, or you can actually email the program director, Chelsea Wood, directly. Her email is chelsea@buythenbuild.com.
Hey, Heather, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing after the big storms, right? Two of them.
Yeah. Well, one just hit Florida and one came through here. But yeah, we're doing okay. It's, feast or famine for the roofing business. A lot of times, thankfully we stayed kind of steady, but it definitely picked up a lot of things, on the demand side.
All right. Well, I'm glad everything's okay. And I guess it's good you have business, right?
Yes. Yeah. It reminds people that roof didn't fix itself.
Yeah. Essential. Yeah.
All right. I have a few different deals, and I was scanning Biz by Sell, our aspiring sponsor. We aspire to be their sponsee. And I found kind of an interesting hole or kind of dark corner of Biz by Sell. And it's just, if you search for businesses for sale in the state of Florida, you get some really interesting things, like really interesting. So I'm going to share my screen, and there are a few different things that really stood out to me. So and we can pick one. I'll defer to you. But this one really stood out. This luxury car storage business warehouse asking $16 million, and it has some real estate. Another one that stood out was this exquisite fine jewelry in Citrus County, Florida, asking $19.9 million. There is barely any information. They don't tell you their revenue or earnings or anything like that, but it is kind of still interesting. One that we won't do, but was kind of also, I clicked on it just because I wondered, did they say anything about the financials? But there's a strip club with real estate for sale in Miami. I just personally would never own a strip club for a number of reasons, but I have talked to people who own them, and they are fantastic businesses. So this is what you can find if you search Biz by Sell in Florida.
Wow, it's wild in Florida for sure. I thought it was California, but no, it's Florida. Florida's wilder than us.
Look at this one. There's a mature. They're asking $900 million in Sarasota County, Florida. It's a well-known gynecology and urology practice in a quaint beach town. $900 million. Like who
I hope
buys
that's
that
a
other than
typo.
a hospital system?
Right, the whole system. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's somebody hit too many zeros, I hope.
Yeah. All right. So which
Yeah.
one do you think? Fine jewelry.
I feel like the jewelry is just going to come down to the inventory as far as that's what they're trying to get you to buy it for.
They
The
call
car
it out,
storage,
Heather. You're so smart. You didn't even look at the link.
I already
but
know
they
that
call
one.
out 15 million. You know it? Like know it? Know that deal?
No, I don't know it. No, I just,
you just know the
I can
industry.
feel it in my gut that they didn't give you any information on earnings or the financials. It's really just the inventory they're trying to sell. And I've looked at another small retail jewelry store where someone was trying to sell it to their employee. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's kind of what it boiled down to. That really the cash flow was not good in that situation. It was mostly inventory.
You nailed it. You nailed it on that one. I clicked on it, and that's exactly what it was. All right, let
That's
me
what it
find.
is. So the car storage sounds interesting.
Yeah. So
Let's-
look at this. This is kind of interesting. So all right, I'll read it. It's a luxury car storage business warehouse in Homestead, Florida, which they say is in Miami-Dade County. The asking price is $16,125,000. They don't list the revenue. They don't list any FF&E. They say the price per square foot is $375. They don't list any net operating income. They say it was built in 2024, which there's a rendering drawing here that makes me wonder, is this actually built yet? Or is this kind of a, some kind of greenfield type development? But they say it's 43,000 square feet. This is a description. Speedway Auto Vault is a luxury 4-acre gated car warehouse development located next to the Homestead-Miami Speedway. Construction underway. There we go. This listing is to buy out development and operate a very popular business of exotic car storage rentals and or resale of completed warehouse condos. Air-conditioned 22-foot concrete precast twin T-ceiling / roof. Don't really know exactly what that means, and I do construction. 10 by 10 electric roll-up hurricane garage doors, 7-inch thick concrete slab which can accommodate triple car lifts, optional epoxy flooring and metal mezzanine man caves or storage available. Features include security cameras, 20-foot ceilings, bathrooms with showers, hurricane garage doors, air-conditioned fire sprinklers, 43,000 square feet of warehouse with various size individual spaces, and a signed NDA is required. Property is listed by this guy, Robert Zinzel from Coral International Realty. He is a real estate agent and a broker, which can be a good or a bad sign. And we've talked about that some before. Okay, Heather, what do you think about this? This is a real estate play.
It's a real estate play. It almost makes me feel like it's like self-storage for luxury cars. It's like in development. So you don't really have, you have to go get your customers. You have to build up the cash flow and stabilize it. And so I think what they're asking is more of like a real estate value. What bothers me though, is it is already under construction and whoever's building it doesn't want to see it through. They want to sell it now. And that's a little concerning. I do think this is always an interesting business, though. What I've seen in California has been repurposing of other types of properties, of buildings for RV storage and boat storage. I've seen that a lot because people want to store, especially if it's in the inland areas in California, they want to store those things in a somewhat climate controlled and not right out in the sun kind of situation, so they last longer. And I've seen real estate brokers buy buildings that were cheap for one reason or another and repurpose them for this use. I like that idea. And I like, there's all these mall properties. We've got a lot of retail properties that aren't needed for their original purpose intended anymore. To me, this kind of business feels like it would be wiser or better where you go in and take something and repurpose it rather than a brand new development that's designed just for this. What do you think?
So I think the only counterpoint to that is if it is tailored specifically to these high-end exotic cars. The ultimate play here seems like they have tied up a piece of property right next to the Speedway. And you could probably do some kind of market, testing to see whether or not people actually at the Speedway want something like this. Do they want a place that they can store their cars, effectively across the street or next door, which I would think probably sounds pretty good, right? You don't have to trailer it back and forth. You don't have to take it to your home garage. It seems like if this were a Class B or Class C warehouse that was being renovated and repurposed, it might not appeal to the high-end demographic of these exotic car folks. If it's just a dingy building that got painted, and there is maybe some cause for concern, or maybe it feels like it cheapens the kind of offering. The thing I'm thinking, though, is, this is a very, very expensive building, $375 a foot for commercial or a really industrial new construction. Is a lot. By comparison, we were just involved in a project here that was and granted, it's South Carolina, it's not Miami. I don't know the value of the dirt in this equation. It could be a lot, but it was a 200,000 plus square foot building that was being built all in for $100 a foot, and it's a bigger footprint. So there are some bells and whistles.
Yeah.
They talk
it
about
feels
the
like
concrete
it's
slab.
overbuilt.
Yes. Now, is it that it is actually overbuilt, or is it just that this person is trying to cash out like their actual cost basis for the project, and the all-in cost is going to be $200 a foot, and they just are saying, hey, somebody come along and make my day, and I'll cash out and ride off into the sunset. I can't imagine that actually being the case or coming to fruition, but it does make me a little bit kind of skeptical and interested in what's the premise here. I wonder, how much do you think somebody pays per month to store a car like this?
I don't know. I certainly have heard in living near LA of people doing, buying all these exotic cars and having special storage areas. I've never really heard of one being next to a speedway. So to your point, that may be what sort of is the premium here. But I don't know. What I'm curious, 43,000 square feet, sounds like they can stack them 3 high. How many cars do you think can go in there? And then maybe I can back into how much revenue, because you need a lot of revenue to pay for $16 million, and you still have to stabilize the income.
Yeah. Because you're starting out. You got to price a lot of vacancy in this thing. It almost sounds like too that they're saying, hey, we're building a blank shell and it's going to have the bells and whistles, but there's kind of a menu of services. Do you want epoxy on the floor? Do you want a mezzanine put in? Do you, the concrete is thick enough to have a 3-car lift, but my guess is that there's kind of some, tenant responsibility on the upfit of these. If you want to build a man cave, maybe that's totally up to you. I can get the premise. The thesis sounds awesome. If you have, multiple $100,000 cars, and this is what you do, and this is where you do it, I would think that, it's a no-brainer to, spend a couple $1,000, a month storing the cars in a place that is, dedicated. It doesn't require you to trailer them or drive them back and forth between the speedway and your house or something like that. I know that there is my biggest issue with this is there's major information asymmetry. The person who is selling this probably has already done all the research. And why is it that they're not wanting to bring this to fruition? Kind of like you said early on. That's my biggest concern.
Hey, Michael here. I want to let you know that I'm hosting a conference. First time I've ever done it. And it's called Holdco Conference 2025. If you want to learn how to manage multiple businesses at once, how to incubate new companies, or how other Holdco owners and operators run their fleet of companies, then you should come to Utah next spring. We've got a ton of great speakers, including Walker Deibel, who wrote Buy Then Build and founded Acquisition Lab. Plus, we're hosting it at an all-inclusive mountain resort so you can hit the slopes at the end of the day. So please go to holdcoconference.com for your tickets and get 10% off with your discount AAPod. That's holdcoconference.com and use code AAPod for 10% off. Now, back to the show.
Right. A feasibility study or something to know what are people paying now in other locations per car. What does the demand really look like here? And you still have to go out and book the business. You have to take these cars from somewhere. I don't think they're all going to be brand new cars that were just purchased coming and getting stored here. This is, you're going to have to tear them away from wherever else they're storing their cars now.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
marketing. That's sales and marketing, really. You've got to get their attention, and you've got to sell them on the idea of probably paying more to come over to this location for the proximity to the speedway, but also maybe the other bells and whistles that you might put in. It feels really speculative. It feels like it would be kind of scary.
It also, there's a clue here too. They say rentals and or resale of completed warehouse condos.
Yeah.
So this is going to have a condominium scheme of ownership where there is an HOA, there's shared services, there's governance, and there's fractional ownership, across the entity. I'm sure that makes it, I mean, we have things very, very similar to this right next to Williams-Brice Stadium, not for car storage, right? But they're these really, really nice buildings that are just used for tailgating, and they are only used like 7 days out of the year. And people pay a lot of money for them because you can literally, drive up, park, walk, a couple hundred feet and get into the game. And you basically have this kind of front row tailgate experience. So, I get the premise of it. The condo thing probably scares me a little bit more because now not only are you having to kind of underwrite the revenue potential of this if you're forced to rent them long term and not sell them, but you're also having to underwrite, will somebody like 43,000, let's just say there's 43 units, right? They're 1,000 square feet a piece. At 43 units, 16,125,000 divided by 43 units, you're having to sell these things for probably around $400,000. And that's just to recoup your cost from buying it from this person. So, is somebody going to buy 1,000 square foot garage for $400,000? I mean,
especially if they're an exotic car person, they probably just want to go buy another car.
Yeah. I'm just dying. Like, this is one of those listings where the story and the almost the tape that the seller plays in their head is like worth the signing of the NDA. And just hearing this person, because I promise you, they are so gung ho about this thing. You could not tell them, you could not dissuade them. Like, it's the best deal ever. And they've probably spent an inordinate amount of time putting this deal together, and they're very bullish. We don't know why they're getting out of it. They don't say anything, about why they're getting out. But I would just be willing. I've had enough conversations with people like this where you like step into the twilight zone, and this is all this person has been thinking about for like half a decade.
Well, and as a lender, I have to wonder if the reason that they're selling is running out of funding. That does happen. People, especially like what you're describing, who are super zealous about the project and just believe it can't go wrong. Sometimes they'll jump the gun and start building before they have the loan in place. And lenders hate that, by the way, because it messes up the title. A lot of lenders won't even step in. And I've seen more than one project that went bad that way because they started spending money before they had the loans, and then they made it harder and impossible ultimately to get the loans. So that's another thing. If you're taking over a project like this from somebody else and it's not finished, but it has started, there's a whole title mess that you have to deal with because there could be mechanics liens that the last guy left behind that you don't know about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, not to mention, usually when these things trade, they trade for a discount, right? There is distress involved. Yeah. You're not paying a premium to pick up somebody's kind of half-eaten, sandwich, so to speak. So, the one kind of avenue about this that is intriguing to me is that there's a pretty big market, especially in these really kind of popular high-flying type destinations, of the luxury car rental. It could be a day or, a weekend where people come in and they rent a really nice car. And I've seen some people who do this. It's the scariest business in the world to me because it just doesn't feel like there would be enough collateral or enough insurance,
Yeah.
to like mitigate the risk of somebody taking a $400,000 car that goes 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds.
Right.
Like but there are people I think who make those businesses work, but maybe they're just so good that they keep it under, tight wraps or something.
Yeah, it's super risky, and people want to obviously drive fast with these crazy cars. I don't know what this project is. Now the more I think about it, is this more appealing to a real estate developer that's going to sell the units? And if you can't sell them, then you'll run it like a self-storage with some amenities, like as your plan B, or is that which is the plan B and which is the plan A here? I'm confused. Yeah. They haven't really made it very clear. And just the fact that they're two very distinctly different ways of going, and they're laying them both out here, does feel like a distress situation even more. Like, well, you could do this or you could do that, or, I
have a little bit more info. I was envisioning, a kind of a half decent speedway, in a densely populated area. But look at this, Heather. This speedway looks like a NASCAR speedway. I mean, this is a big deal. But look around this thing.
Yeah,
there is a ton of land that could be.
Yeah, land.
So it's not like if the Miami Speedway was in this area, and somehow somebody locks down 4 acres in, this densely populated area. Okay, that now we're talking about something else. But maybe this is all swamp or something like that. And it's
I was going to say Everglades, but I truly don't know what I'm talking about.
But I just think there's enough agricultural land and parking lots and things like that around this that there is an Amazon, delivery station and hub. I just think that this is one of those, like, if you get pitched an oil field deal in Texas, there's multiple really shrewd oil field investors who have already passed on the deal multiple times, like in order for it to make it to you. I'm thinking anybody who's capable of doing this deal in and around the Miami area has already been pitched the deal, or they've heard about it from 10 people and they're like, there's no way I would touch that thing with a 10-foot pole. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it was really in such demand, first of all, like you said, it looks like the land around here would be cheap because you're out kind of in the sticks there. And second, why wouldn't the Speedway themselves offer, build out a little building and start offering that if it was really going to be super lucrative and their customers really wanted it? When they didn't do it themselves with, abundant land around them, and somebody's coming along just trying to do it independently and just be near the Speedway, it does feel a little shakier as well.
So interesting tidbit that Google just helped me solve. So the city of Homestead owns the track, and it's operated by NASCAR. So there's kind of a quasi public-private partnership going on. Yeah. But man, this is just so interesting. I think a site visit is absolutely warranted. I really want to see. I feel like I'm really telling on myself, but as a Southerner, I've never been to a NASCAR event, and I feel like the odd person out,
I'm so glad I've never been to a NASCAR event.
I have heard that they are phenomenal. Like, you really cannot even like NASCAR, but they are just an experience in and of themselves. Really? And I'm sure we'll have listeners who can back me up on this.
Okay. Well, I'm sure it's fun. What I'm afraid of is the noise. That's
it is very, very loud, but I've heard is really fun, and it's like, I think amazing for people watching is also part of the appeal.
Yeah. Well, then it's time for a site visit, Mills.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this would be really cool. I may call some friends in the greater Miami area and ask them if they've heard of this deal, just because I bet that this is one that has made the rounds. If you're in commercial or industrial real estate in Miami, I bet that you've caught wind of this.
All right. Tell us what you find out, Mills.
I think we've talked about it on other episodes, but the kind of closing thought on this is the dynamic of a real estate agent bringing a listing, right, that is more kind of business related. This is really real estate. This is not an operating business. There's no revenue. But it always is just such an interesting tell. Have you brought deals to close where the seller's agent, the seller's broker is more of a real estate broker than a business broker?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've seen brokers that were absolutely realtors, and really couldn't answer questions around, the financials or the business model, or everything was kind of over their head. It kind of works out okay in those cases if the broker just kind of realizes it and lets the buyer have direct access to the seller, which, every buyer would rather have that anyway. So sometimes it works to the buyer's advantage, but if they stay in the middle, it can be really frustrating because they really don't understand what's going on. I mean, we have problems with deals that are represented by a broker who's more of a realtor, and also when the seller brings in an attorney that doesn't really do M&A deals. Yeah. That can be pretty frightening because that's usually a little bit smarter person who's a little bit better at bluffing. Like they can trying to convince everybody they really do know what they're doing, but it's apparent that they don't.
Yes.
And they mess up the deals pretty bad. Yeah.
We could talk about that for hours. The best M&A attorneys that I talk to all just emphatically say, we would love to have great counsel on the other side. We would love for opposing counsel to be really great M&A attorneys, because then we can cut through the mess, and just get straight to kind of the meat of the issue instead of all this just kind of unproductive. I've had multiple real estate folks tell me that they're thinking about, over the past 15 years, tell me that they're thinking about getting into business brokerage because there's no barriers to entry. There's no credentialing. Now, securities law plays a role in that, but depending on how you charge fees, most of these folks get around that because there was an SEC no action letter that basically kind of, didn't say it's okay, but gave people some kind of wide berth. So I've definitely had folks say, hey, I mean, I'm thinking about, if I'm getting the commission on a piece of dirt or a business, usually the business is going to sell for more. I might as well get a commission on that too. And it's like, oh man, that's like asking your dentist,
Don't do it.
To do, orthopedic surgery on your foot. It's just a totally different thing. So,
yeah. I mean, my theory is that we have so many listings that are never going to sell and have a totally unrealistic price expectations on the seller side because we have too many brokers who just want a listing. They won't say no or push back, because if they do, they won't have a listing. So they'll just, so the more we get, the more kind of junk listings we're going to see if that's the case. Yeah. And I can see realtors maybe thinking this would be a good place to go given the new rules after the NAR lawsuit and the real estate side. So good point. We'll have to watch for that and see what develops over the next few months.
Well, Heather, this was a fun one. I'm glad we got to talk about Miami, exotic cars, and industrial real estate development. Never would have thought that my day, at the beginning of the day, I never thought I would have ended my day on this note.
Really, it was interesting though. Definitely. Good talking to you.
Well, thanks for everybody for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please like the podcast, send it to a friend. Check out our website, aqanon.com. You can search by business type, by category. We have everything tagged there. So if there's things you're looking for, it might help you in your search. But thanks, and we'll see you next time.